Ladies and gentlemen, guess what time it is? It is time to podcast, but not just any podcast. Episode 27 of the Hardly Millennial podcast, where we are young, we're dumb, and we're full of
opinions.
We're full of tons of fucking opinions, ladies and gentlemen. Like all of the opinions. So today, well, first of all, my name's Adam.
That's Adam Hansen. And I'm Matthew Lynn. Hey, guys.
Hello, guys.
Here we go. Now we can start, Adam.
Now we can start. So we had a fun couple days with the hypotheticals.
Those were great.
The hypotheticals
I had a really
were a
good
lot
time
of
with
fun.
those.
So be prepared for more hypothetical episodes in the future.
Not this one, though.
Not this one.
We're going to lay it to rest today.
Today, we are going to talk about censorship.
Oh, that's a little more on the seriouser side.
A little bit.
Seriouser is a word. Look it up.
It's been in the news, definitely.
Has it?
Yeah, especially Twitter. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, has been making a lot of appearances. I believe so, Jack Dorsey.
I'm surprised. I don't really know the CEO of Twitter's. I know all the other ones.
Yeah. I know his first name's Jack for sure. I'm pretty sure last name's Dorsey, though.
Sounds good.
But he's been making a lot of rounds on different news channels and giving different interviews due to he's kind of the hot topic as far as censorship goes right now.
Oh, is he?
Well, Twitter's pretty notorious for banning people for life or suspending their accounts or...
I have heard such things. If you don't line up with Twitter's point of view, you're not going to be on there super long.
Remember that happened to us when we first signed up for Twitter and we didn't even know what we did?
It did happen to us once, Adam. We literally, the first 3 times that the Hardly Millennials engaged with Twitter at all, we were suspended.
Yep.
We immediate suspension, all 3 of our first interactions with it.
And we didn't even post anything.
We didn't even know what we were doing, guys.
The first time it happened, I literally created an account. That was it.
And they were like, you're suspended.
Yeah, they were like, sorry, but we need to review your profile. I was like, what the fuck?
It was weird.
And then the second time was because I was trying to put our the year that we were founded, right? Because when they asked for your age, right?
We put our birthday as 2019.
Yeah.
And they did not like that.
In my defense, though, why the fuck would you make 2019 even a choice?
If you're just going to ban someone immediately.
Or
suspend them immediately.
It's
a trick.
It was so dumb.
So yeah, we've been suspended from Twitter a few times. We're scandalous.
Yeah, we're scandalous. We can't even figure out Twitter. That's probably why they're banning us. But we're on there now. Go check us out.
Here we are. Apparently, it's not super hard to have your account suspended for a period of time on Twitter.
No. Well, the argument that they were making is that, that a lot of people are making is Jack Dorsey has also been very open to the fact that he is a Democrat and that he aligns, he runs his company with even more liberal views and values, which is so like, for example, one of the things that you can get suspended or banned for on Twitter is using if somebody's a man who transitioned from a man to a woman and you constantly keep calling him a man, or you keep calling him a he, or you dead name them, which means using the name they were before they transitioned, they've literally banned people off of Twitter for doing that kind of stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's where some of the gray area comes in.
But Twitter's used by a lot of people.
Twitter's
very popular.
Used by all over the world. It's the number one social media platform in the world.
So let's address for a moment, because me and you know the answer to this, but some viewers may not. So why do we not see those issues happening with like Facebook or other social media platforms, whatever they may be? What's the difference between Facebook and Twitter?
Well, and that's just it. So for those who don't know, things like Facebook and YouTube are all public companies.
They're traded on the stock market. Yeah.
Whereas Twitter is still a private company.
Privately owned. Okay.
So technically, by the law and everything, because they're a privately owned business, they're allowed to conduct their business in any way, shape, or form that they want to, right?
Right. It would just be like a guy has a website.
Yeah.
And there's just millions of people who happen to use this guy's website.
Exactly. But where the gray areas come in and why people are kind of in an uproar based off of how he's censoring people is because of, well, it's the number one used social media platform in the world. So you're not just talking about people like you or I or Joe Rogan or whatever actor or actress or musical artist is using it. You're also having major politicians and senators using it, and not just U.S. politicians.
The president uses it all the time. He loves it.
And other presidents of other countries and rulers of other countries use it also. So
True.
and
Elon Musk used it a lot. Mm-hmm. Not to his advantage.
Nope.
He's terrible at using it.
But there's been a lot of controversy because there have been instances where people will go on where there's like professional trolls now. They call it troll farming. And
Troll farming.
so what that means by professional trolls is there's literally people who are hired by these countries' governments to go onto Twitter, make however many accounts they need to, and stir the pot on political issues, try to give out false information about some things, or smear campaigns on their opponent.
Really?
So, so what's happening is it's actually starting to sway elections based off of people going on Twitter and seeing this information.
Isn't that part of the scandal of the last election, the 18 election?
2016.
2016? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2016 election. What world do I live in? Wasn't that part of the issue? But it was with Facebook on that one. That Facebook may have taken some money from another government for some ads that were put up.
Well, I don't think it was necessarily that Facebook took money, like it wasn't like an interaction of here's this money, help us win this election or whatnot. But it was just because these social media platforms exist in the first place, there's no there's no guidelines put in place, or there's not enough moderators for these websites to be like, oh, you're a troll, or these are a bunch of fake accounts, or this is happening, this is happening. And specifically with Twitter, not just only are these political figures around the world using it, but then there's like major groups using it. Like ISIS was using it for a little bit.
Do
you remember hearing about that a couple years ago?
I'm sure it was a thing.
Yeah. So ISIS was using it to incite violence on other people.
But if you have a social platform that's open to anyone and everyone,
right?
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of church groups who use Twitter who do wonderful things. I'm sure that the Red Cross uses Twitter, and raises tons of money to help out with disasters. So there's lots of really, really good stuff happening on Twitter too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, is it even possible to keep the good and the bad separated? You're going to get both, right?
Well, and you're correct on that. So, and my answer to that question is no, I don't think you can keep them separated. I think when it comes to a point of censorship on these social media platforms, it's you either censor everyone or you censor no one.
Right. And I think, I don't know, it's tough because in the case of Twitter, if it is privately owned, okay, and I may not understand privately owned to a T, okay, but in my interpretation, that would mean there's literally like Joe Twitter, all right, there's a guy, and he owns Twitter. He created it, and he got his friends into it, whatever, they got their friends, and now the whole world's super into Joe Twitter's fucking website, right? So, in my opinion, if that's the case and he privately owns it, that means he funds all of it to get it started. So he paid for everything in the beginning. Maybe he got funders, whatever. But he assumes all the responsibility and the risk for that website. So if he's doing great and has tons of users and is making lots of money on ad revenue and rocking and rolling like he is right now, and he decides that it's in his best interest for his website to keep being successful, to delete these accounts, right? To delete these, what they would be conservative accounts or accounts that have to do against his views. That's his responsibility. So if people don't like that, they're going to stop using his website. They're going to go to a different website where it doesn't ban people for doing that.
Right.
So whereas if ISIS is on that website and is issuing propaganda on Twitter, that also falls on Joe Twitter's shoulders.
Right.
So I think that if it is privately owned and he takes all the responsibility for it, he should be allowed to put whatever content he wants or take off whatever content he wants.
Right.
I'm sure it warns you in the beginning, right? When you sign up with Twitter?
Yeah.
There must be some kind of warning saying we have complete rights over what's on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, and
I'm
Jack,
sure you have to agree to it.
yeah, well, and Jack Dorsey even said too that one of the things there, because he's by no means going to stop, this path he's on now to censoring Twitter. I'm sure he wouldn't call it censoring, but to taking these measures on Twitter. But what they did say they want to do is at least try to make sure the guidelines are more clear to everybody. So everybody has a very clear and concise knowledge of the guidelines on Twitter so they know what to post, what not to post. But in going back what you said about it being a private company and it's his right to do and conduct it any way he wants, I do agree with you. But it truly is a gray area because I look at it in the stance of there's a lot of people that get their news and stuff from Twitter now, right? Which is fine. Again, there are other sources that you can go to get news, but there's a lot of journalists and stuff that are not only getting their news and reading different articles and learning about the world through Twitter, but they're also communicating with other journalists and things like that about the issues, correct?
Right.
So let's say you have this Jack Dorsey, and let's say that his
Joe Twitter.
And let's say that his number one goal is to get rid of all the conservative shit, right?
Okay.
Anything that he deems too conservative, he's going to get rid of.
Right.
Well, so let's say there's a big issue that comes out. Let's say it's immigration, right? It's the border wall. And he deems through whatever guidelines he wants that all of these articles posted by Fox and Breitbart are all nope, those are too much. So we can't have them on here. Well, now that all that anybody has access to now are all these so not all of them are going to be opinion pieces, but a lot of these articles are going to be written by liberal news sources. So there's going to be an obvious bias now on Twitter of the kind of news that's being reported.
I see where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. I can see that there should be certain responsibilities put onto a platform once it has a certain amount of users.
Yeah.
Just simply because of the effect on society. Right. When you have 200 million users plus, you're affecting a great part of the population, and there should be responsibilities. But let me ask you this. In your opinion, okay, regardless of what the laws would be, just in your opinion, do you think that it's okay for a mom and pop coffee shop, okay, just let's say the one down the street that used to be in our town, is it okay for the owner of that coffee shop to say, you cannot talk about conservative agenda in this coffee shop? It's mine. It's privately owned. I really just don't like it. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I hate politics altogether. Right. You can't talk about politics at all in this coffee shop. You still have the right to free speech. You're still an American. But in this coffee shop, it's not allowed. Is that okay?
Well, I would say yes, based off of the laws of how privately owned businesses are allowed to run. But that's where the gray area comes in, because
there's another step to my question.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so the mom and pop shop, pretty easy to say it's okay.
Okay.
Fine. Now, what about if it was Starbucks? Mm-hmm. What if the entire company Starbucks said, we hate politics. It is not allowed. If you talk about politics in a Starbucks, anyone around the world, you're going to get kicked out.
Right.
You can't talk about politics in Starbucks. Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Again, I'm going to say yes.
Ooh.
So the reason why I feel differently when it comes to these social media platforms.
Starbucks is a publicly traded company, by the way.
Are they a publicly traded?
Yes, they are. You can buy stock in Starbucks. Does that change your answer at all?
Yeah, actually it does.
So that's the difference for you.
Yeah.
Is if.
But also when it comes to, well, let me go back to the Starbucks thing really quick, because they're also a company that's franchised out, correct? So people can buy a Starbucks.
I don't know
Starbucks,
that is actually correct. No, okay. I don't believe that they are. But there's many cases like that. You could change the situation to McDonald's.
Right.
And then in your case, yes, McDonald's can be franchised. So let's pretend that for the sake of argument.
Because then in those cases, I would say, again, this is all gray area once again, but I would say that if it's franchised, then the person who runs that particular one, well, no, because they still have to run off the same rules as McDonald's.
Yeah,
but
and McDonald's is a publicly traded entity.
Well, the reason why I feel it should be treated differently on an online platform as opposed to actually being somewhere in person is because the way that I personally view social media platforms is, and we'll go back to like the McDonald's analogy really quick. Let's say that you're not allowed to talk about politics in the McDonald's based off of McDonald's policy, but once you walk out of the McDonald's, you're in public space,
Absolutely.
right? So you can talk about whatever the fuck you want, right?
Absolutely.
So I feel that social media platforms should be treated like a public space. So just like as you said, when you surpass a certain amount of people who are joining that platform.
But the difference there is, okay, because now it's starting to blur all over the place.
Yeah.
So when you talk about public places, I assume you mean places like Madison Square Garden and, giant like parks and
I would say just
roadways and places where all the
sidewalks,
public.
yeah.
Okay. So all of those things that you're talking about are run by the government.
Right.
All of those things are paid for with taxpayer money. And because of that, you have different responsibilities when you're interacting with those things. So when you're walking down the road, you must conduct yourself differently than if you're standing in your backyard.
Right.
The taxpayers do not pay to maintain your backyard. So you can stand in your backyard butt naked
Right.
and yell on the top of your lungs if you want. But you cannot walk down the street butt naked. That's not okay. So to treat all social media like a public area could be done, but what you would have to do then is have it run by taxpayer money and have it run by a department of the government. And then it could fall under the same rules as a public area.
You're right.
But as long as you have private entities owning them, you can't really, I mean, especially when it's a private company. They can do whatever the fuck they want, dude. As long as you don't break any laws. There's labor laws and things you have to abide by. You have to pay insurance, you have stuff like that. But when you're a publicly traded company, I mean, what if you own $1 million of stock in Facebook?
Right.
And then Facebook tries to tell you, you can't put this post up. Well, you literally own a percentage of the company, Facebook. Even if you own one stock in it, you own a percentage of the company. You're part owner. So it's no longer, you're no longer a user. You're literally a part of the company.
Right.
So how can they tell you that you can't do what you want on that company? You own part of it.
True.
So I think that's where it gets different. That's why there's different laws between private and public.
Right. Well, so when I say that, I think, because here's the thing, I do think that these social media platforms like Twitter should conduct themselves like a public space with the same rules that the government puts on our own public spaces.
Right.
I think in an ideal world, that's the way to do it.
I agree, honestly.
Unfortunately, if you have a government that's running a social media platform, well, there's for sure going to be some kind of fucking false or propaganda bullshit that's being fed to the people that's untrue. I feel like that's just going to be inevitable. So I feel like it's actually dangerous to have a government run social media platform.
Yeah, that's how they do it in China and Russia.
Exactly.
Countries that here we see as we don't want to run our country that way.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So now in the case of like Twitter with Jack Dorsey, you're right, because it's privately owned, he can conduct himself in any way that he wants. And the people that are grilling him about his censorship aren't actually arguing that point.
Right.
But the point that everybody's arguing is you run the social media platform that the world uses, that political figures of the world use. I mean, fuck, Kim Jong-un has a fucking Twitter account that he uses, right? So it's this argument of even if this is not what you thought that Twitter would turn into, it is.
Exactly. And
So
now you're held to a different standard.
You have a moral responsibility. Exactly.
So it's interesting because the government actually has a department that is completely in charge of censoring things. They're called the FCC.
Yep.
So the FCC's job is they watch all the media, and if there's something that, on TV, if someone cusses during daytime TV, they will bleep it. They're the guys who put the bleeps in it.
Yeah.
So all television shows and whatnot have to be run through the FCC before they can be aired.
Right.
So why isn't online also run by FCC? Why?
Good question.
At the very least, why aren't websites with over, let's say, when you hit 10 million users, at that point, there's a number, okay? I'm not a genius, right? But whatever the number is that we agree on, once you hit that many users, you then fall into different regulation standards. Wouldn't that be the easiest way to do it?
That's how I would think you should do it.
Then you could still have Adam's private chat room where you and 15 friends get on and are not regulated. You can say whatever you want.
Right.
But entities with over 10 million users, now you're in a different category.
Well,
now you have to be censored.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of why, and that's also why I think when it comes to like censoring something on Facebook, it's very different than like censoring something on Twitter, right? Because on Facebook, if you post something, who's seeing it? Well, it's whoever's in your friend list, right? So really, Facebook is just that. It's like you have your own personal page, your own house. You can conduct yourself in your house how you want to conduct yourself. But Twitter is very different because everything that you post goes out to the world. Anybody can see it.
Right.
They can go to your page to see all of your stuff, but you post it, anybody can like click on you and be able to see what you have going on, which is what just that creates that gray area. But I agree with you. I think it should be a point to where when you get to a certain level of followers or viewers or people using your social media platform, it should be regulated in a different way. The reason why I think the FCC hasn't stepped in and done something like that now is just because the internet and especially social media is just still so new. I mean, that's why
they don't understand.
That's why this is even a conversation anyways, because nobody knows what the fuck to do with all this shit,
I agree. And I think at the end of the day, honestly, if it's widely known that Twitter is taking down pages that don't adhere to their beliefs, and people are still very willing to use the site, then Twitter's not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
They're not losing any users over it. They're doing fine. People are still very willing to interact with the website.
Right.
So why should they change what they're doing, really?
Yeah, and to be fair to Twitter and Jack Dorsey, they have continuously... There was a specific interview I saw with him where it was just that. There was a gentleman who was just grilling him with questions and questions and questions. And basically all the questions came back to, well, you banned this conservative person for saying this stuff, yet these liberals over here are saying all those same fucking things, and you're not getting rid of them, right? And the answer that Jack Dorsey always just came back to was, we're humans, we make human error. It's not that we don't ban liberals. It's just because they also mentioned, too, that there was a specific instance where there was a conservative figure that had a bunch of fake accounts for just trolling. He wasn't some government agent or something, but just some guy. And they were able to link all of the accounts back to this one guy so they could get rid of all those accounts as well as ban the creator of those accounts. Well, the interviewer argued, well, here's this liberal guy over here that's doing that exact same thing, has even admitted to doing that exact same thing. Why haven't you banned him? And their excuse is, regardless if he is doing that or even if he admitted to it, the reason why we were able to do it to this guy over here was because we could actually go into our system and link the fake accounts back to him, where we weren't able to do it with this person or this person. The problem is, every single time this gentleman brought up an example of a conservative person who was banned and then a liberal person doing the same thing and wasn't banned, it just kept going back to that same excuse. So it's like, so now it just sounds like this implication of Jack Dorsey going, well, liberals just hide their shit better, which, who knows, that could be true. But
I guess.
But Jack Dorsey also said the second point. Jack Dorsey also stated too. He goes, if people don't like it, there are other platforms for them to use.
Yeah, man.
You
I
know?
mean, if enough people are into it, then it's fine. If you don't like it, don't use it.
Right.
You know, or better yet, make another one. Make one that doesn't do that. See if you could do better than Twitter.
So do you think there's anything that is okay for social media platforms to censor? Like what's okay in Matthew's eyes to censor
Well, I don't really like the idea of censoring
at
really at
all?
all. Okay. Um, yeah, for me, such a slippery slope.
Well, let
Once
me
you start to censor a little thing, it gets bigger, it gets big, and before you know it, you're scared to say stuff.
yeah.
So I guess like an open act of violence, like real violence, like a fucking execution, would probably be something you'd want to censor. But at that point, you're breaking laws anyway, so you shouldn't even be doing that act.
Right.
So I think if an act is illegal to do in the law, you should be able to record yourself doing that act and put it online, including sex.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not illegal. So should you have to warn people that, hey, what you're about to watch has sex in it? Yeah, obviously we already do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I agree with ratings. I get that. I don't think that ratings are a censorship. You're not, well, I was going to say you're not restricting anyone from watching it, but you are.
Right.
But you're not indefinitely restricting them. You're just, it's like alcohol or cigarettes or
Right.
driving, or there's lots of things that we restrict until a certain age. Okay, and it's very widely accepted and okay. So do the same thing with media and entertainment.
Well, let me give you a couple of examples of what some social media platforms are deeming okay to censor. So YouTube and Facebook are two big ones that are in the news right now. Facebook specifically today. So YouTube is making it a point to go and find any anti 9/11, like 9/11 hoax videos, as well as flat Earth videos.
No, I think you should be allowed to put both of those on.
I think so also. And Facebook, the one that was just announced today that they're looking into is they want to go to all the stuff that's about anti-vax, about don't vaccinate your kids because of this, that, or the other thing. And
Vaccines?
yeah, and they're trying to take those down.
Vaccines are hard. I'm actually surprised that there isn't a law on vaccination. To tell you the truth, I'm surprised that vaccines are not mandatory, like
Oh, me too.
the law. But the fact is, they're not. It is completely within the boundaries of the American law to choose to not vaccinate yourself, and you actually have the right to choose to not vaccinate your child until they're 18. They are not capable of making their own legal choices under the government's eyes, regardless of what you personally believe. That's the law of the land. That's what we've all agreed on.
Yeah.
So until they change the vote, my personal belief is that you are very foolish if you do not get vaccinations.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine for you to be foolish, whatever, do your thing, but it literally affects all of us.
Yeah.
And that is why it upsets me, and I think that's why it upsets a lot of people. Okay? But until they change the law, I would fight for your right to not get vaccines because you do not have to do that under the law. You should be allowed to make videos promoting not getting vaccinated and put it online. Until the day that vaccines become mandatory, it's legal, you have to do it, then you can't make videos about not getting vaccinated anymore because now you are glorifying breaking the law. You can't do that.
No, and I do agree with you. And one of the arguments I was going to use because I'm like you. You should get your fucking kid vaccinated, right?
You really should, for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's not gonna cause autism or any of that shit. But and the argument that I make towards them doing Facebook censoring that too, and why I'm not okay with this, because it's a slippery slope. Because the thing is, okay, well, if we're gonna say no more anti-vax ads or no more anti-vax groups or whatever it is that they're gonna censor on Facebook, All right, well, the Scientologists don't believe in going to the doctors or getting treatment or getting their kids treatment when they have cancer or something. And there's been cases of kids dying because of those beliefs.
Right.
So now you got to go find all the Scientologists and get rid of them and anybody who's spouting that kind of stuff. And then I'm sure there's other groups out there that do the same kind of stuff.
Well, and who is Facebook to be censoring anyone anyway?
Exactly.
Who is that, and what credentials do they have? What they don't have they don't have an office of people or a department that has degrees in censorship. They don't have professional censors. So who are they? There's people like me and you and plenty of very talented people working at YouTube or Google or any, but who are they to be censoring things?
Yeah.
If anything, there's a department for that with professionals in it who already do that.
Yeah.
Let them do it. You certainly should not have the entity that runs the platform should not be the one censoring that platform, because there's going to be a lot of bias.
Yeah.
It should be a third party if you're going to censor it at all. I'm not saying that you should censor, whatever, okay?
Right.
But if everyone takes a vote and we all unanimously agree we want to censor the shit out of the internet, okay, that's what we want to do, they should make a department to do that.
And I think that's actually going to be the natural progression of things. So just how we have the FCC for television, I think inevitably all of this stuff is going to reach a head. It's going to reach a breaking point. And then there's going to be a department that's created for the sole purpose to censor, or I should say properly censor, all of these social media platforms.
Well, and honestly, when you think about it, shouldn't the companies be happy to have that happen? Those companies pay millions and millions of dollars in tax every year.
Absolutely.
So wouldn't they want some of those taxes put towards a department that's specifically organized to help them?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would think so, especially with like what YouTube's going on right now with the like all the child crap that popped up and
see, now that should be
demonetizing
censored
videos.
because that's against the law.
Exactly.
You cannot have sexual contact with a minor. That's illegal.
Right.
So you cannot make videos that glorify that.
Right.
Hell no.
No, and I agree with you.
So those should be taken down. Yeah,
Right.
totally. Everyone agrees with that. Come on.
Right. But that's my point, though. It's like, so, but YouTube's response to that was, and we've talked about this, was, hey, the YouTubers, you have to like monitor your comments. Whereas,
Right.
just as we said, if we were able to make another, something like the FCC, so another government-run censorship agency that specifically deals with these social media platforms, I think that's really, then you wouldn't have that issue per se of these YouTubers getting blamed or having to have to do the work, which you already know we think they should do the work, but just in general, though, they would have this third party to make these choices for them and say, like, hey, it's kind of like what we were talking about the public spaces just with the government today, right? If you go into a public space, you have to adhere to the rules of the government, right? So it'd be the same kind of process just through the different platforms.
Isn't it a little bit, I'm kind of putting this together in my head now. I'm just thinking this. It's a little bit ironic that an entity that is so liberal, that is taking down all these conservative viewpoints and promoting so many liberal viewpoints, wouldn't want a government entity, another department of the government created to do more. Don't liberals love big government? Don't they want lots of government interaction and pay more taxes? You get more safety.
Yeah.
So you'd think they'd be jumping at the gun to make a department to regulate them, right?
Dude,
they love that.
There's so much hypocrisy on that side anymore.
So, I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right?
No, it doesn't. None of it makes sense, Matthew. None of it. I don't understand the biggest issue I had, especially back in towards the elections, when the social justice warrior movement was at its peak. It killed me listening to these people say, I can yell and be obnoxious because of the First Amendment, but don't say this, or this to me, or you can't say that to anybody else. But I can yell and be obnoxious because of the First Amendment. It's like, why do you not understand the fucking hypocrisy in your own viewpoints?
That is very true. I didn't really think about that.
And that's I feel like why it's dangerous, and this is what a lot of the interviewers were arguing with Jack Dorsey also, of why this is dangerous and why he has a moral obligation to run this company and do his, if he's going to censor, doing it differently, because all you're doing is, if you fucking hold your hand over somebody's mouth long enough and stop them from talking, eventually they're gonna fucking bite you. And that's what's going to happen.
True.
With this other side.
So what's your viewpoint on cursing in today's world? Do you think that it's as big of a deal as it used to be? Do you think it should still be censored? Do you think there's an age limit to it anymore?
I think if you still get upset by people cursing, you need to chill the fuck out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you think it really shouldn't be a big deal anymore?
Well, and honestly, I don't think it's a big deal anymore. And the reason why, I mean, in some cases
they bleep it.
to some people. Well, some people do, but there's more and more channels now where I see that they don't do that anymore.
On TV?
On TV. Yeah, there's more and more.
They can say fuck on TV.
Yeah,
no, they can't.
I know South Park's notorious for being able to do that.
Well, yeah,
now.
But that's like a...
I know,
daytime TV.
You could argue it's an exception, but I have heard, maybe not fuck, but I have heard shit.
Yeah.
Shit used to be one that was bleeped a lot, all the time. Asshole was another one that used to be bleeped. Remember, it'd be ass beep, and now I've heard asshole more and more. So fuck is still one that you'll see, but I've even heard fuck slip through the cracks.
So you think it's becoming less and less of an issue?
I think it's becoming less and less an issue, and I think the proof is in the pudding, because what are the words that we're complaining about now? It's not you can't say fuck to somebody, or you can't call somebody a bitch or an asshole. You can't call somebody retarded. You can't, if you find somebody stupid, you can't use the word gay to describe that person like we did, back when we were younger, right?
Right.
So those are the words that people care about now. They care about titles. You have to make sure you're referring to the person as the correct title. It's like the gender-specific pronouns, right?
Do you think it's rude to cuss?
I think there's a certain...
I feel like it's rude to cuss to anyone older than you. If they're your age or younger, it's totally okay.
Yeah, but I also think that's just how we were raised, and I think that'll change.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Because, what ends up happening, too, the second, at least for me, if I'm talking to somebody older, you're right, my first instinct is don't swear, to or around this person.
Yeah.
But the second that fucking old fart drops an F-bomb, you damn
you're
straight
like,
I'm
gates are open.
Yeah, gates are open. I'm swearing up a storm now. But yeah, swearing, I think is... I don't think that's stuff. The people that complain about that stuff still, I think is silly. In the end, they are words.
So
But what I do think you should teach, like kids growing up, for example, right? You shouldn't just tell your kids it's okay to swear. They're just words. You should teach them that they're just words, but teach them that if you want people to take you more seriously, try to swear less. Because you still can't go to a job interview and drop F-bombs every other word and expect to get the job.
No, but I'm going to relate it to tattoos
Okay.
for a sec. In that, I think it's becoming a little more socially acceptable to cuss. In that, like you said, job interview. It used to be you couldn't go to a job interview having any tattoos showing.
True.
Just in our lifetime. And now you could be a lawyer or car salesman or anything with gauges, tattoos, whatever.
Yeah.
You can have entire sleeves. It almost looks more professional now. It looks like someone who's more down to earth, and you can relate to them better.
True.
So might be the same thing.
Yeah,
at least turn into it.
Yeah, very possibly.
And if a car salesman said, "Hey, what the fuck's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah.
Nice fucking day," you'd be like, "Yeah, bro, what's going on?"
Yeah, that's true. And I could see it getting to a point like that also. And honestly, I think the only reason why, because if it was all just our generation, nobody would give a shit, right? But I think, because there's still this of just like you said, like if you're around older people, usually you don't want to swear, right? Because you just don't do
It's rude.
that. It's rude, exactly.
Well, they're gonna judge you is the thing. Like, I really, honestly, don't think it's that rude to cuss. I'm like you. It's just but I guess socially, I'm ashamed to do it because I know the older people are gonna judge me because they think it's rude. And honestly, it kind of matters what people think of you. So you don't want people to think that you don't have class or that you're worth less because you don't have pride in how you speak.
Right.
You know, but when you're with your friends, you don't give a damn.
Oh, yeah.
I
of course
never
not.
think twice about cussing around you.
No
big deal.
Of course not. Well, and one thing I think as far as the way that we speak is concerned, I think intent is so important when you're talking to somebody, you know. If I'm, you know, it's like if we're hanging out or something and I say to you or Justin, you know, like, fucking bitches. You know, it's like the
Right.
intent isn't malicious. It's, you know, it's satirical, right? Whereas if I fucking walk into a room and go, you guys are fucking bitches. Well, now it's very different, right? It's a very
Correct.
different conversation taking place.
But that, no matter how you say something, it would be censored the same way.
Yes. And that I think
Is that an issue? Should it matter how it's said when it comes to bleeping things?
I think it matters not so much with swear words. I think it matters with taboo words. So it matters with like retarded or gay or even the N-word, I would argue.
Ooh.
You know, because it's all about intent. It's very different.
You wouldn't even say the N-word to
You're
talk
right.
about the
You're right.
N-word.
Well, and
that's how intense that word is.
okay, well, and let me explain why, because this actually segues into a story here.
Okay.
So I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a podcaster who had a Patreon, right?
Right.
And he was actually a guest on somebody else's podcast, and he dropped the N-bomb.
Ooh.
But he didn't drop the N-bomb in a sense of like, you know, trying to like, he wasn't trying to.
Don't say it.
I'm not
anymore.
going
Okay,
to.
good.
He wasn't. He wasn't trying to like mimic anybody who was black or doing. All he was doing was reiterating a story and what somebody had said in this instance to make a point. Right.
It doesn't matter. You fill in the blank with N-word. You have to say it like that.
Exactly. Well, what ended up happening was Patreon got wind of this and just said, "Okay, no more. You're banned."
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
One episode, one word, no malicious intent. He wasn't talking about black people specifically. He wasn't saying it as an insult. He was reiterating a story. But because he said that word, they got rid of it. They banned
See,
him.
that's not fair. That's OP in my opinion.
That's where
that's
intent-
giving way too much power to a word. And I'm admitting that power by refusing to say the word.
Right.
Okay. But that's just not fair.
I
What
agree.
the hell? We all need to just take it back a step and just, it shouldn't be able to be that much more powerful than every other word in existence.
Right.
Okay? Like, there's nothing else that I wouldn't say, I don't think. I don't think there's any other single word that I truly have a fear of saying.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the only one that you're like, oh, you don't even accidentally say it sometimes.
Exactly.
Every time you catch yourself. That's not fair.
I agree. And that would be a case where intent matters. You know, there should have been somebody who went, you know, even if somebody reported, you know, him was like, hey, I listened to this podcast and this guy said the N-word, you should go check it out. There should have been somebody who went onto that podcast, listened to it, listened to the intent behind it, listened to how it was used in conversation, and made a decision off of that. And I think, and I would use the same argument, not just with the N-word, but with some of the other words that are taboo now that at one point weren't. You know, I would use the same argument with Twitter banning people or suspending people for not using correct pronouns or correct names, or arguing that a man is always a man. You know, people who don't believe in the trans stuff going on right now.
You know, the only other word actually that I can think of that is really taboo to say out in public, but everyone says it behind closed doors. And I'm not afraid to say this one time just for the sake of talking about the word, because it's not that, but would be faggot.
Okay. Yeah.
That one is really, really heavy and powerful out in public, but holds like zero weight at all behind closed doors.
Well, and the reason why I think that word differs so much differs more than I think we think it does from like the N-word is because the N-word is a word that people, you know, typically black people will use as I don't want to say term of endearment, but it's like
what's
dude,
up, bro?
right?
Yeah, we
it's
all
like
know.
dude,
Everybody
bro.
knows
Right,
that.
exactly.
Common knowledge. Yes.
But I think nobody outside of like you, me, and Justin use the word
for
faggot
a
in
tiny
that
bit
way.
of background information on this, Justin loves that word.
And Justin is gay.
Justin is gay, and he gives us free reign to use the word whenever we want. He holds zero hostility towards you if you use that word.
In our household, it's like bro or dude.
So we are not very good at practicing not saying it. Okay. But even us, I would never go to the mall and be like, hey, Justin, what's up? Bleep.
Right.
I would never just yell that out.
No,
because
never.
I would be so ashamed to offend someone.
Yeah.
Well, really, not even that. It's not that I'm ashamed to offend someone. I take it back. I would be ashamed of being judged socially by everyone else who heard me. That's the embarrassing part is the judgment.
Mm-hmm. So I actually had an instance where I said that word in public, and it was actually referring to Justin. You know.
Oh, I know this
You
story.
know this
That's
story.
a funny
Okay.
one. But you pointed to someone else, or like that. There was another person who looked very interesting right behind Justin.
Yes. So let me explain. So as you guys know, I'm a barista. So I'm behind the counter at my particular coffee shop. And there's this really nice guy that comes in every single day. He's always very kind to us. He's a younger guy, very nice guy, but he wears makeup.
Okay.
You know, he wears makeup.
So it's clear to see that he looks obviously different than a lot of the other people around him.
But he has a wife.
out.
He has a wife and all that. He just wears makeup.
I've met him. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So there was one day that I was behind the counter with my coworker, and this gentleman we given him his coffee, so he went to the condiment bar that was a little down the way
Go
in the
put sugar
coffee
in
shop.
it or mix it, whatever.
And I see Justin walk by
Our roommate. Yeah.
in the coffee shop, and I turned to my coworker and I went, "Look at this faggot."
Oh no.
And I didn't realize that the gentleman
Was standing within your vision.
was standing within my vision. Thankfully, he didn't hear me.
Right.
You know? But then it was also kind of a wake-up call to me because I said it to my coworker, and he knew
and you felt social judgment though.
I did.
Even though
Exactly.
that coworker is a good friend of yours and knew you were joking,
Right.
you still felt a little bit of ashamed because you were embarrassed.
But you shouldn't feel that way for any word.
You should not.
know?
That's completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I agree.
But you're right. That is definitely another one that's very taboo to say.
But it's still nowhere near as powerful as the N-word.
No,
the N-word
not at
is
all.
overpowered.
Not at all. But yeah, it's really funny.
I would feel better if every race had a super overpowered word.
Right.
Like if there was one that no one dared say unless you were part of that race.
Right.
But black people are the only ones who get that.
Yeah.
Which, is fine. I'm not saying it's wrong because black people got it. It would be wrong if any one race had a word so overpowered. We should all get one.
Well, and that's just it. And unfortunately, with that word, the history behind it isn't necessarily
Isn't even that old. The history behind it is, 300 years old? It's not even that
like that.
ancient.
Oh,
Jeez
no,
Louise.
no.
There's
The
much
history is
more.
history.
There's much more impactful history within the history of humankind.
I agree with you. And I don't
So
think...
how did something so new within the last 250 years get so much power? It's ridiculous.
Well, I think it's the same word. It's the same way that the word faggot or fag did, right? It was used so much maliciously that it just became something you didn't say.
You would think that it would be like the Jewish people who would get a word that's so unfathomable because they've been getting hated on the longest of anyone in history. They were the first people to get hated on.
I think they have one, don't they? I can't think of it, but I think they do.
Well, they
have
have
one.
them, but it's nothing that's so terrible that you wouldn't
nothing,
say it.
nothing
I would
like
say any
that.
of them.
Right.
It's rude, but you don't get socially crucified for saying it.
Yeah.
But the N-word, you get in a lot of trouble, dude. You get in a lot of trouble.
Well, and like I said, it comes back to intent. If somebody is using a racial slur towards you and they clearly have malicious intent towards you, well, then yeah, at that point it's just rude. It's not okay, But like I said, it's very obvious, I think, when somebody's using malicious intent with any kind of slur.
If everyone tomorrow, if all the white people tomorrow could possibly unanimously decide that we're just going to start saying it.
Right.
and every one of us just made a point to say it 10 times tomorrow.
There'd be uproar.
No.
You don't think so?
I think it would completely take all the power out of it. I think all the power in the word, not the world, all the power in the word comes from the embarrassment,
stigma.
comes from the stigma. If all of us just unanimously could decide to say it 10 times tomorrow, don't do this, folks. I am not promoting you doing this. You will probably get beat up. But if we all could do that, I think it would totally take the power out of the word. It's literally just a sound that our lips make. It holds no actual real value of any kind. You can't physically harm someone with your voice.
Yeah,
it doesn't
true.
work.
And to be fair, I think just as time goes on, I do think there is power being taken out of the word, to where it's not being quite such a, I don't know. I feel like obviously it's to a point to where like we still won't say it, because it is still considered a very, malicious word to use. But I think in time, even maybe in our generation, we'll see that becoming less and less such a taboo word to say. I honestly think we'll get to a point where people just aren't going to really use it at all. Whether the intent's malicious or not.
I don't know. It survived for hundreds of years. I think it's going to keep going.
You think it'll keep going?
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
It's time. At least make up a new one. Let's at least get uproared about a different set of syllables for a little while. This one's like I said, almost 300 years old.
Yeah,
it's getting kind
true. But yeah, so I mean, it's like I said, in my opinion, though, words are fucking words. It's one thing if somebody walks up to you and punches you in the face. It's another one if somebody walks up to you and calls you a bad name. You know what I mean? It's sticks and stones break my bones.
I completely agree with what you're saying. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. They say you can't infringe on other people's rights, right? So that's why you're not allowed to just say whatever you want. Mm-hmm. But then the double standard of that is you have the right to say whatever you want. Yeah. So who is to say what is right and wrong with what we speak?
Yeah, well, and that's the issue right now because there's, especially with like gender specification, where everybody wants to be referred to as the correct gender, or they want to use the correct pronoun.
Why? So first of all, where is it written that those people... Okay. Oh, we're going to get some backlash for this one. Sorry, Adam.
Oh, we're going to get a backlash a lot on
Where
this
is it written that those people have the right to be called the gender that they want to be called? Why do I have the right as Matthew? Why do I have the American right to be called a man? Mm-hmm. If you call me a woman, if you say, hey, Matthew, hey, she, look at her over there, and you just did that all the time, can I call 911? Can I sue you? I can't do shit because I don't have any kind of right, any kind of legal obligation towards me that I pay for or work for to be called a man or a woman.
Yeah.
It's literally a preference, and fuck your preference if I don't want to adhere to it.
Yeah. I agree.
If I want to be called Michael instead of Matthew, and I really love that name, I don't have any fucking right to be called Michael. If you say, no, I want to call you Matthew, there's nothing I can do about that.
Exactly.
What I can do about that is I can stop talking to you.
I was just going to say.
I can remove myself from your area, but you're not hurting anyone. You're pissing me off. You're annoying me. But shame on me for staying around you while you do that.
Exactly. Well, and here's my thing with the gender specification shit. So, look, this is just me personally.
Right.
You get boy or girl, period. If you want to be referred to as a she, I will refer to you as a she. If you want to be referred to as a he, I'll refer to you as a he.
Out of respect, I don't mind doing that either most of the time.
But the second you try telling me to call you fucking Z, Zay, Za, whatever those fucking pronouns and shit are.
I don't choose to take the time to deal with that. No. And there's no law saying I have to. And you don't have the right to tell me that I have to call you that.
Yeah.
You don't have that right.
I think
I can't hurt you or attack you for doing it.
Of course not. No, of course not. Well, and that's the difference, and that's this big argument and I don't understand how we all became such such pansies about it. I mean, we could argue that social media and the internet and technology did it, but it's just that it's, the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
Right.
And you have these groups out there that are calling for order, of saying these people are committing hate crimes, or saying that them calling them not by the correct gender pronoun is an act of violence against them. I think in Canada, could be wrong about this, but I think in Canada it's actually a law now to where you have to refer to people how they want to be referred to. Otherwise, you can actually be fined. Like, they can press charges against you. Like, that's the way the world's going right now. And this is why this shit's so important, because it's all a slippery slope. The second you say one thing's not okay, well, now you're giving everybody free reign to define what's okay and what's not okay.
I think that you have the right to call yourself a man or a woman, but you do not have the right to force me to call you a man or a woman.
Yeah.
I have the right to call you what I want to call you, but I do not have the right to hurt you for what you're doing.
Yes.
I don't have the right to kidnap you. I don't have the right to punch you or burn you or cut you. I don't even have the right to go around and slander your name.
Right.
I can't go to all your coworkers and say you should hate that person because they do this. That's called slander. That's against the law. But I can choose to quietly by myself judge you for what you're doing.
Right.
And I can choose to not respect your decisions. I have that right.
Yeah. And
I'm an asshole for doing it, and I don't actually do that. I'm playing the devil's advocate. I have no problem calling a man a woman out of respect if that's what they want.
Yeah, just remember, everybody, guys, let's put another disclaimer here. Remember, we are young, dumb, and full of opinions. Okay, guys?
And a lot of this is the devil's advocate. Okay,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's more interesting when it's extreme, right? So we try to play both sides of the field,
Yes.
the far sides of it.
I think it's important. I think that's why podcasts these days are so important, because you need this kind of long-form discussion, and you need these kind of ideas and thoughts that some people might be scared to talk about. You need those things to be said. You need people, you need to inspire critical thinking. And nobody's doing any more critical thinking. So you have to have those out there that are, at least try to inspire it in other people.
Do you think that a big problem nowadays is that everyone is very, very interested in teaching other people lessons? So to me, I see this phenomenon of nobody wants to learn things anymore, but everyone is highly, highly interested in teaching everyone else something. And if that thing you teach them can be a punishment or a lesson, that's like bonus points for them.
Yeah.
And when I say them, I simply just mean particularly younger people, people under the age of 30 who live in the world today. They just seem very fascinated in punishing other people if you don't have the same beliefs that they do.
Well, it's actually ironic. So you had began that thought saying that people aren't learning things anymore, correct?
Right.
And I think that issue is actually caused by everybody thinks they know everything now because of the internet. So what happens is somebody, wants to say, oh, how does marijuana affect the brain? And they'll read an article about it, and now, boom, they're an expert on it.
But just because you read an article and you can, even if you can retain the information in the article, it doesn't mean that you can put it together and comprehend it. It doesn't mean that you can then, just because I read an article about chemistry doesn't mean I can go and teach someone about chemistry.
Exactly.
It doesn't make me a professional in it. So I see what you're saying. People have instant access to facts and to statistics and numbers. I can know the answer to any question that I have at any moment, but it doesn't mean I understand those things.
Right. Well, but that's exactly why I said it's ironic, is because but what happens is people do when they have questions, they do look it up and they go, oh, well, I know that now.
Now I understand it.
So now what happens? The second that they're with mixed company and somebody says something and they remember that article they read and it said something else, they're really quick to jump on the gun. And I think we actually spoke about this during an earlier podcast. Remember what I said? I go, nobody listens to anybody anymore, because when somebody's talking, the other person now is automatically thinking of a response. Yes. Nobody's actually just sitting there and listening to what the person says. They hear one bullet point of whatever they're saying, and now they're formulating a response in their head. And the second you stop talking, that's when they go in. And what do we have now? We have these arguments where it basically ends up with maybe facts at first, and then just becomes yelling of like, "You're wrong."
Oh,
no,
it's just
you're
emotion.
Wrong. Yeah.
We see videos of it all the time where we're like, man, adults really act like kids.
Oh, adults really are just
We talk
kids.
about that all the time, man.
They're just grown-up kids.
I don't know. I have an issue with censorship altogether. I think that as little of it should be done as possible.
I think so too. Especially when it comes to like these social media platforms and things. But they're just all gray areas too. I mean, is there anything that you feel is censored just to finish up here, like censored in the real world? Or is there anything that is not censored that you feel should be censored? Or is there anything at all that you think should be censored?
So I think that if it happens in nature, you shouldn't censor it on TV. So if you can drive down the highway and you have the chance of seeing a terrible car accident with a person cut in half on the side of the road.
Right.
You don't see it every day. You don't see it very often. Some people go their whole lives without seeing that.
Right.
But it is a possibility to see that scenario while you're driving down the public road.
Right.
It's possible for children to see that scenario. It's part of life. People die. It sucks, but it happens. Sex. It's very commonly not done in front of children, right? But there is the possibility that you could walk in on your parents having sex. You can... So if it's possible to see it in nature and it's not fucking people up, then they should have it on TV too. They should have it on, I don't know, should they glorify it? Maybe not without having a rating, but no, I think that there should be as little censorship altogether as possible. I think that it's a slippery slope and it's a dangerous slope. And it ends up, in the end, in my opinion, with the government ending up having the power. Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of the government being any more powerful than it needs to be to do its job.
I agree.
I respect it. I understand it. But I'm not the hugest fan in the world. And I am young and dumb and full of opinions.
So. As we both. And I would just leave this for everybody of just, say what you want, but
just don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Be
just
kind.
Just be cool, man. Just be nice to people, and it's not an issue.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening on today's podcast about censorship.
Yeah, this was a fun one.
Yeah.
Let us know if your views are different.
Yeah, let us know if you have some issues with any words that we said today.
Yeah. Kyle, let us know if you think we nailed this one, bro.
Yes, let us know in the comments, even if your name's not Kyle, but otherwise we just want all the Kyles. Anyway, so thank you so much for listening, guys. Remember, we do have all the social media platforms. Just as a little tidbit for you guys, we are currently working, Matthew mentioned yesterday, getting our podcast up on iTunes and Google Play. We will also have an update video coming out for you guys here within the next couple weeks. We are coming up on our month.
Coming up on the month.
That's
exciting, man.
Very exciting. So thank you guys so much for the support. We have 2 days left with our GoFundMe, www.gofundme.com/HardlyMillennial. Any donations are appreciated. Thank you to Kyle and Katie who have already donated money. We greatly appreciate and love you both.
Love you.
Love you. And Matthew, any final thoughts?
You guys are fucking awesome. Censor that.
All right, guys.
See you tomorrow, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.